Over 1,000 people attended the 6 sexual assault units in Ireland in the year 2023. That's almost double the number of people who attended in 2009 when we first started collecting national metrics.
This is the Rotunda Hospital in Dublin city centre, where generations of Irish women have had their babies and received maternity care. But within these walls is a service less heard of, whose work is vitally important as well. This is Ireland's busiest sexual assault treatment unit, where victims of rape and sexual violence will report to for medical care and evidence gathering. Is the person often alone when they arrive?
It really depends on what the person needs and the circumstances of their attendance here. And certainly if someone wants to bring a support person with them, a friend, a relative, a family member, they absolutely can. It can be hugely traumatic for something like this to happen to someone within your family, even if it didn't actually happen to you yourself. Our rape crisis team are excellent for both supporting the individual themselves, but also the person who may come with them.
Once someone has arrived and they've met with the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre team, what happens next?
Some people just have a very brief conversation with the person from Rape Crisis because they just want to get on with having the examination done, having the samples taken, receiving whatever medicines they need, and then they might sit with them again afterwards for 20 or 30 or 40 minutes or even longer. Other people really just want to settle into the unit here, understand where they are, ground them a little bit in the company of the person from Dublin Rape Crisis, get over the sort of acute shock that they find themselves here.
In this room you're getting the information that you'll use for the examination part?
Yeah.
And are you also explaining to the person who has come in what's going to happen?
Absolutely. But before we do any of that, we take the person's consent or permission, because in the context of sexual violence, somebody has lost the autonomy to be making decisions about themselves. And one of the things we really want to do here at the Sexual Assault Unit is ensure that we give the person back a little bit of power, a bit of autonomy to provide us with their permission before we do anything.
There is still a stigma behind it sometimes, especially with regards alcohol intake and kind of victim blaming and stuff. For a lot of people, it can be daunting to them hearing forensic examination and Garda involvement, but just because you have the guards involved at the beginning doesn't mean that you have to pursue a case or have to bring it any further. We encourage everyone to at least pick up the phone and have a conversation with us.
When people present here, do they tend to have bruising? Are there injuries often?
That is one of the myths of sexual violence, that people presume there will always be a physical marking if somebody has been sexually assaulted. It's by far not the majority of people that would have an injury, a physical injury or a physical finding. And that's why I suppose it's important that we take the DNA evidence, because that may be relevant.
Sexual violence can impact anybody. There is that huge misconception about that there's a typical victim, that it's a woman, that they're of a certain age, and it really isn't the case. It can really impact anybody.
In 2022, the Central Statistics Office published their sexual violence survey, which identified that 52% of women and 28% of men had experienced sexual violence in their lifetime. So that means 52% of people in your office, 28% of men on your rugby team. There's a lot of sexual violence in our society, and it's really important that as a society we provide good responses when that's happened. For some people that'll be just psychological care, for other people it'll be the physical aspects of coming to a sexual assault unit, for other people it'll be emergency contraceptives or other medicines. The reason it's important to reach out so that they can tell their story and receive whatever care is right for them at the time when they need it.
Now, of course, my experience as a journalist will be very different from those using the service. But after just spending an afternoon here, I can see how seriously the staff take their work and how support, warmth and patient agency is at the centre of their care. More of us should be aware of the important service Ireland's sexual assault treatment units deliver, so that perpetrators can be brought to justice and survivors can receive the support they deserve.